All right. Well, welcome everyone. I know that it's 12, and so we will definitely have some agents that will continue in joining us. But welcome. So today's session is with the lovely real estate coach, Matt Tully. And today he's going to be doing a session on manifesting your 2024. And so this is going to be the year of personal business growth and personal accountability. And so Matt's going to be going through a bunch of different business strategies and best practices to really help elevate your year and start 2024 and your business growth off with a bang. So he has over a decade, I want to say over 15 years of experience in real estate, just about. And he has done some fantastic work in starting his own business and working with a lot of top producers across the country. And so there is so much that we can learn from him. And so I'm very excited to have him here with us in rooms today. So with that, Matt, take it away.
All right. Hey, everybody. How are you today?
Good, good. And also feel free to utilize the chat. That's there for you as well. If you have any questions, any commentary as Matt is kind of going through his presentation. I know not everybody wants to unmute and interrupt a speaker. And so feel free to utilize that to your heart's content. We'll stop every so often and just kind of check on the comment section to make sure that that we are answering your questions.
There is a lot to go through today. I'm going to make sure that similar to, or for those of you who are here for my session last month, we're going to aim to have, like as Isla just said, blocks for questions. But if a question comes up, I'm going to ask you to save it till the end, if not to put it into the chat, and we'll get to it as we can. All of that said, Happy New Year. I know that many of us in the world of real estate are just getting our businesses back to life. So well, good to see you on this end of things. It's a really different market than when we parted ways before the holidays, right? There's a lot going on in many different ways. And also to think of it from a different standpoint, all of us set different intentions or resolutions, or many of us do at the top of a new year. How successful you are in those, I find, is all about structure and accountability, as well as like telling other people about your goals. I'm sure a number of you have different stories in your own lives, how that shows up in one way or another. And a lot of today is going to be exactly about that. Quick, either show of hands or in the chat, who's been in the business at least, hey Jacob, how are you? Who's been in the business for at least 1 year? That's going to be almost everybody here. Great, outstanding. What about who's over the 5-year mark? All right. Anybody north of 10? All right. Yeah, I love it. So we have a pretty broad stratification in terms of like what levels of experience are here. And that's not to say that someone who has 1 year of experience is any better or any worse than someone who has decades of experience. It's just there's many ways to do this business as there are people in the business, right? I say that to my coaching clients on the regular basis. It's all in how you choose to do what you choose to do in this business and why you're choosing to do it. So with that said, let's dive into the presentation for today. All right, we're going to share. Pardon me, just one moment. Okay, there's that. Technology is great when it works, right? Okay, so then we want, there we are. Awesome. Can you see Manifest Your 2024?
Yes, we can, Matt.
Awesome, great to hear. Okay, so this presentation today is going to in fact have 2 alternate subtitles. Number 1, it's a year of business growth and personal accountability. Now, why do I say that hand in hand? Because generally as an entrepreneur, the first thing we have to work on is ourselves in order for it to show up in our business, right? The idea here is that we have to be the primary person who's holding ourselves accountable in order to grow, but also in order to for that to happen many times, that's a system that has to be put in place. Not everyone views accountability as a word that's favorable, shall I say. So here's another title for today: holding yourself and your people accountable to grow and to grow your business. Does that, and my next question is going to be, what are your goals for today's session? If you want to come off mute and share, I'd love to have like 3 examples about what you're aiming to get out of today's session. Don't be scared, I don't bite. I promise.
As much as I can. I just love learning from other agents and other people that are in the business and have been, or there's always something new and exciting, or, someone else always has another way. So
yeah. Janet, is it Janet?
Janet, yes.
Yeah, a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking up. That is like the heart of the matter in so many cases. We don't have to reinvent the wheel in this business, right? There are, like I said earlier, there are as many ways to do this business as there are people in this business. Generally speaking, on YouTube, through a Google search, you will find somebody who's had a similar struggle or gone through a similar process. And in some ways, that's a great thing, because in many cases, you can take that resource and make it your own without having to start from scratch. So I love that that's why you're here. Thank you so much. 2 other people, real quick. What are your goals for investing this hour with me and with us today?
I have manifested things in the past, but never in my business.
Donna,
Never directed it to my business, let's say.
Great. I'm glad you made that correction. That's fantastic. We're going to get to this a little bit later in today's presentation. What is one thing that you're particularly proud of in terms of was wildly complex or like a major achievement of your life?
Oh, that's hard to say.
Fair.
It's kind of, it's crazy. I grew up middle class, lower middle class. But all my adult life, I was pretty much poor. I had a, gaggle of kids and had a hard time making it work. And my business is having it in the first place is a big success for me. But a thing that I manifested specifically was my car, because I had all these beat up junkers and then, one day I was able to purchase my car through just, I want to say magic, but but just putting it out there to the universe that I want this car, and I got it within 6 months.
And it's a wild thing when you put a goal out there like that. You vocalize it. You're very wildly clear on where you're looking or what you're looking to make happen and how, in fact, you're going to make it, bring it into life. And it's usually a complex task like that. Even buying a car is a collection of many little tasks, right? So many of the things that we generally see are worthwhile or major accomplishments in our lives are complex. For those of us, most of us on this call will have graduated high school, if not some institute of higher learning. Getting your degree, or in fact your GED, is that a collection of very complex tasks? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that said, do you think it's a collection of complex tasks that allows you to manifest whatever you choose? Can you move mountains if you break them down into little bits? We say step by step, right? All right, so great that we've got the 2 shares in terms of goals for today's session. Let's look at our points of focus for today. So we're going to focus on breaking down the larger goals for you and your business, though this will pertain both to personal goals as much as it will to business goals. Breaking down your larger goals into trackable actions. The importance of data tracking in this process. What data to track, your accountability and or one-on-one cycle, so that it is in fact something that stacks upon itself and you can grow between each session, which is how you move those mountains over time, right? And then last but not least, the importance of an accountability buddy, if not a group, if not a coach. So a little bit about me. clicking on the wrong screen. That's why my slide won't change. Here we go. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Tully. I have had the great pleasure of being an executive and leadership development coach to many real estate professionals around the country. And what does that mean? What do I do? In my background, I have built my own business from scratch. My home market is New York City, so my team and I still serve Manhattan as well as Western Brooklyn. I also sell homes in Fire Island Pines, which is just off of the south shore of Long Island, for those of you who are familiar. I've been a coach for now over 14 years, coming up on 15 soon. I, in fact, have built my team twice from scratch. Why do I say twice? Because I am not afraid to admit that I failed and I learned a lot from it. And in fact, I built back better. Thank you, Biden administration. I built back better, in fact, the second time around. And I've also had my own firm twice. I specialize as a coach because I was hired as a team leader for two of KW's largest offices, one in New York, and then in fact, in Brooklyn actually, and then also in Hollywood Hills, in West Hollywood, New York, or Southern California. I worked very integrally with Chris Suarez and in fact, Ben Kinney before they started building Place Inc. I was one of their national regional directors, where we really focused on helping a lot of agents of different levels achieve great amounts of success through leveraging their businesses, through in fact growing into different markets. And what I've done most recently is I've coached about 50 of the top teams through Side. In fact, I was working with teams all the way up to the $2.5 billion sales volume a year mark. A lot of the common themes here, and I'm not looking to toot my own horn. A lot of people say, you look like you've been in the business for 2 years. How could you have done all this? I will offer to you that I usually am wearing 2 to 3 hats at any given point in time. The common threads and why I bring up my background is because I'm very passionate about developing other people. I'm very passionate about helping other people get out of their way. And we're going to see a lot of that. What the keys that you will see in today's presentation are all very much so the foundational building blocks of coaching. So first, we're going to dive into breaking down larger goals. Now, Donna, we talked about what a big goal was for you. Would anybody else share one major accomplishment of your life today?
I'm technically not an agent, but I would just say one of my big accomplishments to this day was getting into and completing my master's degree.
So how congratulations.
Thank you.
I was so glad to have that weight off my shoulders when it happened for me.
100%.
Yeah, and because it is a weight on your shoulders, right? So when you're thinking back to your master's degree, which those can be blinders on life, how were there ever periods of overwhelm?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever experience periods of overwhelm where there's way too much going on?
Oh, 100%, because I was a student full-time. I was also working part-time for a different company, but they were treating me like I was working full-time. So there was that whole thing. And then on top of that, I was in a long-distance relationship too. So managing that as well as all of my social activities, my taking care of myself. And so definitely had those moments for sure.
Thank you for sharing. For any of those of you who did anybody have any did that bring up any kind of sympathetic resonance in you? Does anybody have a similar experience? Just show of hands. What about anybody who's a parent? Anybody who in fact has gone through a rough time and bounced back from it? Sounds familiar, right? These are universal stories that happen to all of us, part of the human experience. Why do I bring them up? Because overwhelm is something that is fairly universal. How do we get through it? It is very common today to say you just throw your hands up in the air, right? There's so much that is so overwhelming all the time. I encourage both my parents and others to be very wary of watching your news on TV for that exact reason. But That said, I like to read just about everything. And I would say like taking it step by step is a part of that process because I need to be able to digest it. Wrong direction. We need there we go. So why I'm bringing up these 3 questions. Could these 3 questions yield answers for you or your business that are currently really overwhelming? Do you see the parallel I'm making here? They're overwhelming now. And a little bit each day is generally what's going to keep you on track as long as you hold yourself accountable to much greater things this year and for your business. So I'm going to ask you to either take a sheet of paper or write an email to yourself or text yourself. And I'm going to ask you to put down 3 points about what your goals are for today. I mean, what your goals are for 2024, pardon me. I want you to be very honest to yourself. Are these tied to a business plan? Do you have a fully fleshed out strategy in terms of how you're going to bring these particular goals to life? And then I'm going to ask you to answer the 3rd question, which is how often do you review your goals? Take 30 seconds. Thank you to those of you who are playing full on and in fact doing the work here. That's why we're here, right? All right, bring that to a close. So what are your goals for 2024? Daniela, would you be willing to share yours?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can. Talk to me. What are your goals for this calendar year?
I was just in the middle of writing them. I've only got 2 so far.
Tell us one.
So I was just be successful. I'd like to make like over 200,000 in real estate after taxes.
Oh, okay. So let's thank you for sharing. That's awesome. That's a great goal. And that said, 200 after taxes is going to mean roughly what when you're talking about GCI?
I think I'd have to do double that.
When you're talking about business expenses, when you're talking about a lot of other pieces in the puzzle, yeah, that's pretty much on the money. And is this tied to a business plan? Have you completed a business plan for this year yet?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty. That's definitely part of the process, right? And then that said, because you haven't yet set a business plan, how often are you reviewing this goal of yielding $200,000 in income to yourself this year from your real estate business? How often are you circling back to that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. So do you have your goal written down anywhere? Do you reflect on a weekly or a monthly or a quarterly basis on what or how many deals you've done, how close you are, how close you are to reaching that goal for this year?
I did just get a Ninja planner and I did just start writing in it. I just got it this past week. So I am trying to be a little bit more on top of like scheduling, like writing everything out so it's actually attainable to see it, check it off, kind of just like more concrete.
Danielle, I really appreciate you being vulnerable here. This is awesome because I can tell you that every single person on this call has their own things that they're working on and looking to start new. Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. This is how we grow, right? So diving onward, two more quick questions. I just want you to take whatever comes to the top of the mind. What was the major accomplishment for you that you broke down into much smaller pieces in order to achieve? Take 10 seconds. I'm going to ask you to write that in the same spot. Then Daniela, I'm going to come back to you if I may.
Yes,
So
you can.
awesome. So with regard to our goals, whenever we're talking to about anything that's tied to our business plan, we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for the highest level of success possible, right? So the best that we've seen yielding from what some said is the old Harvard MBA business school study, if not the Yale study. There's a lot of like chatter back and forth these days about this study, but largely from the study that was about goal making with one Ivy League school or another's student population at graduation. Largely, they were seeing that the closer these goals were to be regularly reviewed, that they were in fact written down, that you had accountability in place, that they were all of the things you see on this in the post-its on this slide, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. The more that they were all of these things, and the more you reviewed your tracking document, the more likely you were to achieve them. Which is why I'm saying if it's tied to your business plan, and if you break it down into smaller pieces and you track your data, you will be near unstoppable in this business. So I'm going to challenge you to refine your goals. Some of the ones that you brought up today, if not another one that comes into mind, and you're going to aim to focus on that goal for the rest of our session today. So a very common one, and I'm not picking on you by any means, Daniela, is to make to make a lot of money selling real estate.
Yes.
Has anybody ever heard this in their office or in fact on their team? Yeah, this is a really, really, really common one. Is this goal specific? No. So we'd have to talk about how many transactions you intend to do over the course of the year. In fact, you need to talk about what is going to be the measure of your success. Are they going to be families that you help over the course of this year? Is it going to be X number of buyers and X number of sellers that you're going to work with? Is it et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Is it achievable? Is it roughly 1.25% or 1.25 times what you did last year or what you've done in an average year? Some people will get as high as 1.5, if not 2, but there are a lot of stipulations that come into play. Do you have the support and the systems to grow at that rate? 100 units, Raul, I love your style. Raul, I'm going to ask you to get clear on that too. What are you going to do different this year compared to last year in order to grow in that way?
I'm going to start off by being healthier this year than last year. I think Ella remembers when I joined one of these calls when I was in the hospital. So health is going to be a big thing.
I'm really glad to hear that because, like we are the biggest drivers of our own businesses, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like, so that's a fantastic intention to start the year with. Aside from being healthier, what's one big thing you're going to do this year to achieve that goal? Different this year than last year.
Yeah, this year, well, I've noticed that I kind of relied on realtors and just company leads in the past, and I haven't really actively sought out to generate my own leads, so that's one of the things that I know that I have to focus on, because if I'm going to do X amount of units, then I have to have X amount of leads coming in.
That is a huge, huge revelation. Like to have to actively develop your business versus passively developing your business, right?
Correct.
That is, in fact, like the change maker for many agents who are out there in the field. Like that's like right now, especially after the last year, when we had two like absurdly busy years in 2020 and 2021 from many markets, not mine, let me tell you. However, that said, many markets around the country experienced major growth, like ridiculous growth at the same time. Are we poised to have a similar effect later this year if everything continues to progress on the same trajectory with the Federal Reserve right now? Yes, we're expecting to have, like many markets are seeing multiple offer situations already.
Right.
which is a
Right.
difference from like major difference from a month, let alone 2 months ago, right?
Right.
So that said, getting really laser focused on what you're going to be doing differently, on what systems you're going to change, in fact, on what hires are going to be helpful for you in this growth process. It's going to be something that I tend to see many agents at this phase, right before like a big rush. That's how you achieve a new level of growth. Awesome. Raul, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So regarding specific measurable goals, why do they need to be specific? Why, in fact, do I bring data into this equation? Because as a business owner, which you all are here, you want to make sure that you can govern your business with data. What data points do we often talk about in the field of real estate? Price per square foot, average days on market, what else? Let's see. Number of offers, percentage from the asking price, like so many different data points. What I would ask you is like regarding your own business, do you know your average days on market? Do you know your like what your average number of days for your contract to close process? Buyer over buyer. Are there places where you could be more efficient in your lead generation? Are you tracking your activity? And there are a lot of different mechanisms to do this. Generally speaking, if you are just getting started in terms of tracking your data and your actions, yourself as well as your team, whether that's an admin assistant, whether that's buyer's agents and listing agents under you, you want to make sure that you're really clear on tracking actions every day. And I'm going to give you an example of this in a minute. You're also going to create a tracking sheet for your goals, and you're going to break them down from an annual basis to a monthly basis based on the number of months you're choosing to work that year. I say choosing to work because some of us work 50 plus weeks a year, unfortunately. And some of us choose to work about 4, if not 6. You're going to take that goal and split it based on the amount of time that you're going to choose to work that year and develop your business. I'm going to encourage you to take this document and then post it somewhere where you can review it regularly, on your fridge, put it next to your workstation, print it out, and also have it as something that you can check off on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis. This is something I do with a lot of my coaching clients, help them develop this for themselves and for their teams, because this is how we break down the goals, right? The little actions that we take today show up in 90 days. All right, so, but why do we track the actions? Like I just said, what you do today shows up in 90 days, right? So what we're doing today, generally speaking, if you meet a new seller today who's not ready to list right off the bat, many of them are going to be listing in the spring in most markets around the country, right? That'll be anywhere between March, April, if not May. And April 15th is roughly three months from now. So my question to you is like, if you don't take action today and there's a hole in your business in 3 months, the action you can take, the answer to that question is like, what can I do? Is always you take action, you take it as soon as possible. You do your lead generation a little bit every day, exercise a little bit every day. When I'm tracking actions on my team, this was the very early tracker that we used. This was the goals for every category of action that an agent could take for lead generation on our team. Any kind of appointments that they'd be going on. We knew the ratios of how many listing appointments each agent on our team had to go on in order to yield a listing, how many buyers, or how likely they were to close a buyer with an exclusive agreement early on. What our listed to closed ratio was. Like if we listed a property, were we likely to get it into contract? Were we likely to get it closed? It gave us a lot of information in terms of like how we need to cinch up our systems and get things a lot tighter. Now, this can be simpler still. I'm sure none of you have seen one of these before. If you ever went through kindergarten, this is a very standard star chart. What you need to do each day, like make it fun, make it exciting, make it a competition. If you are in cahoots with anybody else in your lead generation group, anybody else in your local market, it can be really fun to say like, like where you are in comparison to your goals versus where they are in comparison to their goals, not comparing to one another, comparing yourself to yourself. And if you have a more developed team, if in fact if you're leading with revenue, and in fact you see, oh, Mahala, if in fact you're leading with revenue and driving your team, you will may see that there's value in a tool, something like Sisu. Sisu is a great goal tracker. It shows you where largely every piece of your organization is moving. Now, if it is you and up to 3 different agents and an admin, if not transaction coordinator, that's usually right before I see people start using a tool like this. This is generally where, like if you have 5 to 10 team members, that's where I start seeing agents use a tool like Sisu. In the meantime, though, spreadsheets are great. Always lead with revenue. Like I play red light, green light with expenses with my agents all the time. It has to have a return on investment as a tool for me to say yes to it, especially in a market like right now. All right, so accountability, what is often a dirty word for many people, at the same time, really where the magic happens. This is the slide I borrowed from last month. What is accountability? It's really a check-in on the integrity, what you say you're going to create, what you are going to do in terms of your lead generation habits, in terms of your everyday activities, what you're breaking down the larger scale from. You're going to look at what you need to do every day. And if in fact you're tracking it, it doesn't count as a day worked. Get very granular on your activities and you will see how much time you're actually taking towards building your business and how much you're kind of just seeing what comes in. If you have either yourself with an accountability buddy, if not with one of your junior agents and yourself, if not your staff and yourself, having a short 15 to 30 minute meeting once a week towards the goals that you are aiming to trend yourself and them toward is huge in the goal creation and manifestation process. Having someone outside of yourself know what your goal is, having them ask you about what steps you've taken, when you in fact are hitting a wall, having someone to in fact bounce ideas off of is really powerful. Because as much as we are wildly creative creatures, or have the capacity to be at least, it is really impactful to have someone who you're talking to outside of yourself, so it's not just happening in a void. For those of you who have either junior agents or in fact staff, this is a standard cyclical, meaning that it builds upon itself one-on-one format that I use with a lot of my clients. This is the 15-minute version. You absolutely, if you have the time to invest in your people, and I say it that way very particularly, aim for at least 30. Don't go over 30. After 30 minutes with one of your juniors, and it starts becoming a therapy session very quickly. But that's not a bad thing. It's just, in fact, it's you. If you're focusing this as a business conversation and towards their development, whether personal goals or business goals, you want to make sure that it follows. It stays towards that topic pretty much the whole time you're together. So 24 hours before the session, your agent, either yourself if you're using this for you, or in fact your staff member or whoever is reporting to the other, fills out a Google form with what they've done that week in terms of numbers and what they feel they need to focus on in their one-on-one. First 3 minutes, you're greeting them. Another 2 minutes, what went well this week? We're starting with focusing on the positive, right? Because there are going to be weeks that aren't so positive. We need to be able to find the silver lining and keep moving forward. So much of this business is mindset. What could have gone better? Why are we asking this question? Because in fact, that's where mentorship, if not collaboration, lives. Like, this is something I've identified through self-awareness that I could in fact have done better. Here's what I think my course of action is going to be next. What are your thoughts? Listening first more than speaking. 3 minutes. I'm sorry, 5 minutes. Review your goals for the current week and any homework between that session and your next session. Why, in fact, are you doing it in such a manner. Why do you always assign homework? Because for those of you who are teachers on the call, many real estate agents in a former life were a teacher of one variety or another. Like homework is generally where the magic happens, where like you start to process what you've learned. So, and always in fact keeps you on track towards your broader goals. When there are breakdowns, you notice I've got that bullet point. Break down your breakdowns. What went well? What could have gone better? Don't have it be a blowout. Don't have it be a blow up. And then really as a point of closure, you're going to ask them, what's coming up this week? Who's the next buyer? What's the next project? What's the next listing you're putting into contract? Get them laser focused on where they need to point their attention next. Is this something we all need? Yeah, me too. Me too, absolutely. Every single day. I make sure that I go through this process with myself before I dive into the fray. Lead generation, working with my clients. I want to make sure that I know where I need to point my intention for that day. You are welcome to screenshot this if you're so inclined. All right. And then really the importance of having like somebody to do this with is that, like we said earlier, it's not in an echo chamber. It's not just you thinking, you saying these things for the sake of saying them. In fact, in the broader scope, something that's going to help you over time create collaboration, create opportunity, like use somebody else's brain. So we talked in broad and sweeping statements for certain pieces of this process today, breaking down your larger goals into smaller goals, looking at like accomplishments versus like being able to practice your skills versus being intentional about where you're and what you're creating this year. What are some takeaways that you have from today? Don't be scared.
How to stay accountable, how to track your goals, and how to make sure that you keep revisiting and reviewing them in order to make sure that that goal can be implemented from start to finish.
It is really about writing them down. It is really about making sure that they're posted. It's really about making sure that you communicate them and review them regularly. Keep coming back to them over and over and over again. Keep reminding yourself every morning, this is what I'm creating, this is why I'm doing it. And if it's not a powerful enough driver for you, I want you to examine if it in fact addresses the reason why you're in this business at all. If not, you might need to like look at retune it so that it's looking at it through that lens. Elizabeth, were you going to say something?
Yeah, and apologies, my meeting went a little bit later, but my takeaway from this is the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just writing it down, but also being mindful and making sure that you are hitting those small goals that you want to accomplish to larger goals.
Yeah. No, the I don't think it was I forget the name of the U.S. Navy SEAL who wrote the book, but it's in fact, if you do one thing a day for yourself, make your bed.
Yep,
Even
I
if
have that book.
Yeah, it's a solid book, and it's to remember, like it's the little things that remind you, like the little accomplishments, the little bits of self-care, the little things that you can cross off your list that say, yeah, I did something today. And not every day is going to be a rock star day, right?
Yeah, and I like.
Oh, go for it.
Sorry, I was going to say, I like what you said about, you know, you have to be able to track where your leads are coming from, how many appointments you're setting, because at the end of the year, when you review, then you can focus on, okay, so I got most of my clients from X, so maybe I should put more energy into that.
And if I may, Elizabeth, like you're touching on something really important here, and in fact, that's very much so foundational in the ownership piece of entrepreneurship. Creating data, but also being able to decide where your business goes based on that data and committing to it. So if in fact you're seeing most of your leads come from open houses, do you think you're going to absolutely lean into anything and everything to make your open houses as effective as possible. I'd hope so.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. If you're seeing that come from purchased leads, great. If you've got your systems down pat for that particular lead generation style, outstanding. If you're lucky enough to have a database that continues to churn out regular business for you, do you think you're going to turn your attention to the database? Yeah, I'd hope so. For this kind of gear shift, I apologize. That said, with when we're looking at it through the lens of creating whatever we choose, it's all about the day to day. What is the next? I'm going to ask you to take 10 to 30 seconds. What, like out of your reflections today, what is a takeaway that you can put right into your business? What is something that's actionable for you today? Whether for you, for your staff, for anyone you mentor or work with. Anybody looking to start tracking their actions and see what actually shows up? Anyone going to start taking their annual goals and putting and breaking them down into smaller pieces?
I have done that, but I'm going to put it up on a poster board so that everybody can see it.
I like that. I like that. And you are in competition with yourself, is the thing to remember.
Right. Not with the other agents in my office.
It is you against you. That's exactly right. Carolyn, you're going to start. I love it. What are you going to start? Tracking data?
Tracking data and breaking down my goals into smaller pieces.
Heck yeah. The and in fact, Elizabeth, to swing back to what you said, when you are tracking not just your goals, like Carolyn just said, but in fact, Elizabeth, where your leads are coming from and the way that they come in, you can make sure that your systems are that much more adjusted. And in this market, do you need to be agile? Do you need to know where you are spending your money? Yeah, it's an investment, like in a very, very real way. So I want to thank you so much for your time and your attention today. In fact, if any of you are interested, I offer coaching both via one-on-one groups or one-on-one session, as well as in groups based on production level, as if not like rough trajectory in your overall growth. And I also do consultation and project work. If that is of interest to you, there is my email, as well as a QR code with an interest form. But that said, we are about 15 minutes out from the end of the session. And if you would like to ask questions and pick my brain, that is why I'm here.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was so incredibly helpful. And I love the way you took our real life experiences in order to pose these questions to us and kind of help us work through what our goals are going to be looking like into the new year. So thank you so much. I really want to make sure that if anyone has any questions, now they get the time while they have you in order to ask. So if you guys have any questions at all or want to pick Matt's brain. Oh, thank you, Carolyn. What's the best way to track your GCI? Would it be monthly?
I like this question already. So in fact, for me, and in fact, I may have breezed through this slide a little bit too quickly. With my annual goals, I break them down on a quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily basis. So if my goal for this year is to sell 100 units, my first breakdown is going to be by looking at how many buyers versus how many sellers. My intention to intentional split, whether that's 70-30, 80-20, whatever it is in terms of how you do this business. Next, I'm going to look at what the average rate of conversion is from listing appointment to signed listing. For most people, that's anywhere between 65 to 80%. So to yield, say 50 listings, that would mean that if I'm taking them at a rate of 80%, means I'm losing 1 out of every 6, I believe. So you'd have to calculate what that number is backwards, divide by 0.6 or 0.65. And then you're able to say, okay, so for this year, I need to set 80 listing appointments. That means, roughly speaking, that I'm setting 7 listing appointments a month. That means that I'm setting 2 a week. Because that's setting 2 listing appointments a week is a lot more digestible for the brain than saying, go find 80 listing appointments, right? You're focusing on what your next listing appointment is towards the overall progression of that goal. But Caroline, I got away from your question. The reason why I break it down on at least a monthly basis for GCI is because on a weekly basis, you may not see a lot of change unless your team is doing, or you and your team are doing a lot of regular volume. If in fact you're doing multiple units a week, absolutely go down to the weekly level. If in fact if you're doing multiple units a month, so you do have to decide what that is for yourself. Put it on the, I would probably keep it on the monthly level rather than the weekly level. Quarter, I look at I'll even do semi-annually every 6 months too. Anything that helps me, like the, what is the statistic? I think the last, in the 60s, when we sent a rocket to the moon, it was actually on track, like actually on course, roughly 3% of the time. The rest of the time, the crew was nudging it back to being on course. Our aim is to keep nudging ourselves back to being on track, on course for our goal. That's why we're doing this. Elizabeth, go for it.
I was going to say, what is the number one thing that you see consistently with all of your coaching clients that they lack?
They all come to me at different phases, so it's hard to say because our needs change and our skills change over time, theoretically, right? So for a lot of my coaching clients, intentionality is something that's hard for them to nail down at first. Accountability for themselves is usually the first thing to go because many of them will put their teams and their organizations before themselves. Very few have the exact opposite challenge where it's all them and nothing for the team. The creating routine, creating structure for yourself is a very common thing. So accountability, routine, and structure. It's the boring things in this business that make you money. Repeating the same things, finding what you're good at, finding what's showing up in your business, like we were talking about earlier, Elizabeth, and making sure you really lean into it in a real way, learning all the most powerful scripts and language around how to secure that kind of business, finding allied resources that are tied to that kind of business. What do I mean? So if in fact you find that there's an article, I think it was either in the Washington Post or I think it was the Washington Post yesterday, and it said that millennials are more likely to buy a house in the suburbs for their pets rather than with the intent of having kids, which is very different than generations past. That said, if you're seeing that you have a lot of millennials who have pets, the question would then be, what are you doing to lean into that? Maybe a pet-based charity in your local area. Maybe finding ways to give back, finding ways to connect with other people who have pets in the area, what have you, leaning into it whichever way you can. Got a little off topic there, I apologize.
No worries. Did that answer your question, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Cool, sure thing.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any last minute questions? I want to make sure that we get to everyone before we wrap for today.
Awesome.
Going once, going twice. No, I guess not. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt. As always, it is such a pleasure to have you here in rooms with us and hear you speak. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate every single one of you for coming out and joining us for today's session. As I always say, we have weekly content in rooms every week, and so we always encourage you guys to be joining us for any of our rooms throughout the week. And so I hope everyone has a great rest of their Tuesday. And thank you once again, Matt. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me, Isla. Thank you,
very much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.